You are driving your lane, minding your business, and out of the fog, an unspoken agreement of loyalty gets broken. You are sideswiped by someone you trusted, and they disappear without leaving a note. You survived the initial impact. You understand exactly what happened, and you know who is at fault. The danger has passed. Yet instead of walking away from the collision, you are picking up the twisted metal and dragging it with you. You get their side. You understand the mechanics of the offense, that you retain the resentment. You are carrying that bitterness like a designer backpack full of bricks. You replay the offense in your head, carrying a heavy load that completely exhausts you. High performers are particularly vulnerable to this defect. Because you are driven and observant, your ego tricks you into thinking that holding on to the memory of the betrayal is a form of vigilance. You confuse rumination with tactical awareness. Surviving the initial damage means absolutely nothing if you volunteer to carry the wreckage. By keeping the grievance alive, you are executing your own sabotage long after the offender left the scene. This brings us to Rule 4 from the 88 Love Antidotes, the intellectual grudge versus the freedom release. The intellectual grudge is a specific cognitive trap. It happens when your head fully maps out the offense, but your heart refuses to drop the debt. You understand the math, but you refuse to clear the ledger. Your ego insists that staying angry provides a protective shield against future harm. In reality, that rigid hostility operates as a heavy anchor, pinning you to the exact moment you are injured. Look at a high-performance machine like this red Ferrari. It is built for uncompromising speed and meticulous execution. Holding an intellectual grudge is the equivalent of flooring the accelerator on that machine while leaving the parking brake engaged. You generate massive noise, intense heat, and severe internal friction, but you cover 0 miles. You burn through your highest-grade fuel just to stay in the exact same place. For anyone trying to build an empire, this friction is the ultimate act of self-sabotage. We can map this mechanical friction directly to the biological hardware operating inside your skull. The reaction starts here, in the amygdala. The amygdala is an almond-shaped cluster of neurons deep inside the brain that acts as your primitive threat detection center. When you recall the betrayal, this alarm system triggers a fight-or-fright state. By replaying the grudge like your favorite movie, you trap this threat center in a state of chronic, low-grade inflammation. This swelling literally constricts the neural pathways to your prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is the region of your brain responsible for complex planning, logic, and high-level decision-making. This biological traffic jam extracts a specific, measurable cost. We call it the chaos tax. Your cognitive energy is actively siphoned away to maintain the anger, leaving you depleted. The amygdala is mobilizing your body to physically fight off a predator in the jungle, but actual reality requires precise executive function to negotiate contracts, manage teams, and spot market curves. You end the day with intense physical exhaustion, tight shoulders, and a heavy chest. You haven't lifted a single weight or run a single mile, yet your biological battery is completely flat. Your brain rationalizes the strain. It tells your ego that maintaining this hyper-vigilant panic is necessary to keep you safe from a repeat offense. Anger is not a defensive strategy. By continually running the threat response for an event that has already ended, you are voluntarily financing your own cognitive decline. To shut down the biological trap, you have to apply a philosophical partition. The Stoics isolated the dichotomy of control. You strictly separate the variables you can manage, your mind and your actions, from the variables you cannot. The intellectual grudge is a direct violation of this principle. It forces you to obsess over the unchangeable past and the uncontrollable actions of another person, abandoning your present internal state. Apply Rule 1 of the antidotes to your own mind, the empty word versus the solid deed. Say it, then do it. You tell your peers you are over it. You nod along and say you understand, but internally you are clutching the resentment. Curation is not healing. Faking the release externally while feeding the grudge internally fractures your own structural integrity. This triggers Rule 11, the talker versus the prover. You can talk circles around the grievance until you are blue in the face, convincing everyone of your resilience. But empty persuasion collapses without physiological proof. Philosophical resilience requires absolute alignment. Your internal baseline must match your external claims. You cannot think your way out of a biological alarm. You have to execute physical mechanics to force a release. The first requirement is Rule 5, the power pause. When the anger spikes, you stop moving. You have to physically drop the defensive frame. Drop your shoulders, unlock your jaw, lengthen your breathing cadence, maintain a neutral, unbroken gaze. This posture builds the compassionate witness. You observe the memory of the betrayal from an objective distance without allowing your physical body to absorb the associated panic. Grounding your physical frame forces a mechanical safety signal up the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is the primary neural highway connecting your organs to your brain, responsible for slowing your heart rate and communicating physical safety. Activating it physically shuts off the inflamed amygdala. An active grudge holder operates with frantic, highly reactive energy. A composed builder maintains a grounded, elite physical baseline, regardless of the memory crossing their mind. Taking strict physical control of your posture and your breathing is the non-negotiable prerequisite to neutralizing the neurological threat. Here is the reality check. You want to feel in control, so you hold the grudge like a trophy. The betrayal was a foul. The hit was entirely unjust. But acknowledging the reality of damage does not validate your decision to let the wound stay infected. Keeping the resentment alive is identical to drinking a bottle of poison and pulling up a chair to wait for the hit-and-run driver to collapse. You are the only one taking damage. To execute the freedom release, you must enforce a clean partition between two distinct chambers. The first chamber is the vault of understanding. This belongs entirely to your head. You extract the cold, hard data from the betrayal, calculate the lesson learned, and slide the heavy steel bolts of a boundary into place. The second chamber is the furnace of forgiveness. This belongs to your heart. You take the emotional debt, the desire for an apology you will never get, and you drop it into a controlled fire. You destroy the ledger entirely. You lock the door to protect your future, and you burn the emotional debt to reclaim your present. You can fully forgive the individual and permanently revoke their access to your life at the exact same time. Direct. The freedom release is not a moral surrender. It is a highly calculated cognitive reclamation protocol designed to restore your energy. You execute this today by running the Snizzle test. When you feel the heavy, avoidant drag of the grudge, you force the issue through 3 steps. Step 1. Name it. Take a piece of paper and write down the exact betrayal. State what happened in one cold, honest sentence. No drama, just the receipt. Step 2. Own it. Look at the paper and acknowledge the cost. Admit that holding on to this specific anger is actively bankrupting your daily energy reserves. Step 3. Treat it. You must vocalize the release to make it physical. Say out loud, "I release this debt." Then you destroy the evidence. Shred the paper or drop it in a fire. The physical action of destruction cements the neurological release in your brain. The debt is zeroed out. Smooth, resolved. The parking brake is off. The friction is gone. Your executive function is fully restored, and your cognitive speed returns. Drop the baggage. Leave the wreckage on the side of the road, and aim every ounce of your reclaimed power at building your empire.